Hi everybody, welcome to a Saturday session with Exam Revision. My name is Kate and today we're going to be going through the topic of coordinate geometry for higher level junior cycle maths. So firstly, we'll just take a look at our learning intentions. So by the end of this session, what should you be able to do? So you should be able to find the distance between 2 points, the slope of a line, the midpoint of 2 points and the equation of a line. We should also be able to draw the graph of the line when you're given an equation. We should be able to find the x and y intercepts. And then we also need to be able to find the point of intersection of two lines. We're going to do this using two methods. So number one, we'll do it using a graph, and number two, we'll do it algebraically. So that's going to be our simultaneous equations from algebra. So I'm going to divide the session up into a few sections. So we're going to start at looking at the formulas, where to find them and how to use them. Okay. Then we're going to look at all the information we can get from the equation of a line. We're going to look at that section in a little bit more detail because it's a little bit trickier. Then we're going to graph a few lines and we're going to revise simultaneous equations. So we use those in coordinate geometry to find the point of intersection, but they can also come up as an algebra question. Okay, so it's really important we know our simultaneous equations very well. Okay, and then we'll finish up by looking at an exam question on coordinate geometry at the end. So this page is super important. It's page 18 in your formula book. So you'll be given this in your exam. Okay, so the second you see a coordinate geometry question on the paper, you need to open up this page. It has all the formulas you need, so you don't need to learn off any formula for this chapter. Okay, so we have the slope, the length, the midpoint, and the equation of a line. The bottom two down here we don't actually use at junior cycle maths, so you can ignore them. You'll see them in leaving certificate maths, but we don't need to worry about that for now. Okay, you'll notice here as well for the equation of a line that there's two equations there. You need to know when it's easier to use which one. Okay, so when we're going through the equation of the line later on in the session, we'll point out the difference between the two of them. So just the first thing we need to be able to do is we need to be able to plot points. So this question says plot the points 1, 2, 5, 7 and -1, -3 below on the xy plane. The question could also say the Cartesian plane. Don't be thrown by the big word, it's just your normal x and y axis. So with these you're always given two numbers, so a point, it always has a bracket, and then two numbers separated by a comma. So the first number tells you how far right or left to go, and the second number tells you how far up or down to go. How I remember this, it's always when you go into the school, you go along the corridor, and then you go up or down the stairs. Okay, so for the point 1, 2, we're going to go along the corridor, so we'll go over 1, and we'll go up 2. Okay, so the point 1, 2 will be here. Then 5, 7 will be similar, so you go 5 over this way, and you're going to go 7 up. So we are going to end up 5, 7 will be there. Okay, and then for -1, -3, we're just going to go the other way. So -1 is over there to the left, and then -3 is down here. Okay, I'm just going to add on two more examples. So I'm going to say the point A is 0, 5. Plot the point A. Okay, so for 0, 5, we're not going to go right or left, okay, because that first number tells us how far right or left to go. We're not going to go right or left at all. We're just going to go straight up to 5, and we'll label that as point A. Okay, and then we'll just do point B, which we'll say is -3, 0. So -3 tells us we need to go this way, and then 0, we don't move up and down at all, so that's the point B right there. Okay, so points are usually given capital letters like that A and B there, and this could often come up as kind of the first part of a question. So you could be told to plot the points 0, 5 and -3, 0. Or you could be asked the opposite. So you could be shown the point A here, and you could be asked to write down the coordinates. So next we're going to find the slope of a line. Okay, now there's two methods for this. We're going to show both methods. Sometimes you have the choice, you can pick your favourite method. Sometimes you need to be able to do one method over the other. Okay, so my advice would be to be able to do both methods. So we want to find the slope of the line AB, and we have our 2 points here. A is the point 2, 3, and B is the point 5, 4. Okay, first method, we're going to use the formula. Okay, so we look in our formula book and we say that, okay, the formula for the slope is m is equal to y2 over, or minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. Okay, really important that we know another way that they could write slope would be m. Okay, so they could just use the letter m. Now, we're just going to label our points, same as the last two methods, x1, y1, x2, y2. So m is equal to 4 minus 3 all over x2, which is 5 minus 2. Now, I'm just going to put all that into my calculator. Okay, so I'm going to press the fraction button first. I'm going to do 4 minus 3 all over 5 minus 2. Okay, so I get out 1 over 3. Okay, so slope is equal to 1/3. Now, that's method 1. Okay, method 2 then. Okay, to do method 2, you need to have a graph in front of you. Okay, so to do this method, you need to have a graph. For method 1, as long as you know 2 points, you'll be able to do it. Okay, but for method 2, you need a graph. So instead of that formula over here on the left hand side, we could write that m is equal to rise over run. Okay, now with this, just to note that formula is not in your formula book. Okay, so you need to know that slope is equal to rise over run. Okay, I think it's quite easy to remember anyway, and it is the only one you need to remember for this chapter. Okay, now we're going to look at our 2 points. We're going to look at our point A and B. What we're going to do is we're going to kind of form a triangle. So we're going to draw a straight line over this way and up to there. Okay, this here along the bottom, so our left to right bit is going to be our run, and then this will be our rise. Okay, so we can see that it ran from 2 to 5. Okay, so how far is this distance here? It's 3. And then it rose up from 3 to 4, so it's 1. Okay, so we're just going to fill that into our formula now. So m is equal to the rise, which is 1, all over the run, which is 3. Okay, we should notice here we get out the exact same answer, so we get out 1 over 3, both methods. So both methods should always give you the same answer. Okay, just to note, for the second method, you need to have the graph drawn and you need to learn that formula. Okay. So now we're going to look at the first formula. So we're going to look at the distance formula. So if we look at the first question here, we have the points A and the point B. Now, the question says find AB. So those 2 lines beside the letters AB, that means distance. Okay, so find the distance between A and B. You need to know that notation. They may not use the word distance, so you need to know those 2 lines mean the distance between A and B. Now, it's a coordinate geometry question, so we're always going to do the same thing. We're going to go to our formula book. We're going to open page 18 and we're going to look for the correct formula. Now, the word distance isn't mentioned on that page. The word length is, okay? And we know from everyday life, length and distance mean the same thing. So with all of these questions, you're going to notice a pattern. We're always going to write down the formula first. So our formula is, alright, so our formula is, there's a big square root, and underneath it, it has x2 minus x1 all to be squared plus y2 minus y1 all to be squared. Okay, so that's our formula. Now, we take our 2 points, so we have our point A and B, and we're going to label this as x1, y1, and this is x2, y2. Okay, so for all our things, so for distance, slope, midpoint, we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to write down our formula and we're going to label our points. Now all we need to do is sub our numbers into our formula. So we've got the distance, AB, is equal to, so you're going to have x2, which is 10, minus x1, which is 2, all to be squared, plus y2, which is 8, minus y1, which is 5, all to be squared. Now I'm going to put all that into my calculator exactly the way I have it there. So things like the bracket is really important. 10 minus 2 to be squared plus 8 minus 5, all to be squared. That is going to give me an answer of the square root of 73. Okay, now when you get an answer like that, okay, they won't always come out to be nice numbers. Sometimes they might. Okay, here it didn't. Now it depends on what the question says. So if it says round 2 decimal places, then I press the SD button on my calculator and round it. If it doesn't, you're better off to leave it as the square root of 73. Okay, now the next one, same question, except for there's some minus signs thrown in. Okay, this is how you get cut out with these questions. Minus signs, forgetting to add in the extra minus sign. Okay, so find square root or find the distance between A and B. Again, the same question. First thing, we're going to write down our formula. x2 minus x1 all to be squared plus y2 minus y1 all to be squared, and we're going to label our points. So x1, y1, x2, y2. So So the distance between A and B is equal to, okay, x2, which is minus 2. Then we have a minus from the formula, and our x1 is minus 3. So it's minus 3, all to be squared, plus y2, which is minus 1, minus 6, all to be squared. Okay, now this is the key bit here. Okay, so our formula is x2 minus x1. So we have minus 2, minus, and then we can see that x1 is minus 3. So we need to have minus 3. Now, putting this into your calculator, again, exactly the same thing. Okay, make sure you have all the brackets. If you get an error, you have probably missed a bracket. Okay, so like for example, there needs to be a double bracket here. Plus minus 1 minus 6, all to be squared. I'm getting out 5 root 2. Okay, again, we don't need nice numbers. Okay, numbers won't always come out nicely in maths. 5 root 2 is a fine answer. Okay, so don't think you're wrong just because you're not getting out the answer 10 or 12 or any nice number. Okay, that's finding the distance between 2 points. So our next formula is for finding the midpoint. Okay, so the midpoint, we're looking for the midpoint of A, which is minus 2, 0, and B, which is 6, 8. Now, I'm just going to draw a very rough diagram here. So 5 minus 2, 0, and we're just going to say it's there. Okay, and we have 6, 8, which is somewhere up here. Okay, there'd be a straight line between them. Okay, and our midpoint is right there in the middle. Okay, so what we're looking for is a number, comma, another number. Okay, we need to find out what those two numbers are. Okay, now conveniently again, our formula is in our formula book. So same thing, we're going to write down our formula. So it's x1 plus x2 all to be divided by 2. And we have y1 plus y2 all to be divided by 2. So we'll read our question now. So find the midpoint of minus 2, 0 and 6, 8. We're going to label this as our x1, y1 and our x2, y2. Okay, so we should be seeing the similarity with the last section on finding the distance. So now we're just going to sub this in. So we'll have x1, which is minus 2, plus x2, which is 6, all over 2, and y1, which is 0, plus 8, all over 2. Now, when you're putting these into your calculator, I'm going to put this bit in first, and then this bit, okay? Completely separate. So press your fraction button first, then minus 2 plus 6, then press your down button to go to the bottom of the fraction, put in your 2. This all works out to be 2. And then the same thing, press the AC button, the delete button, start again, press the fraction button, 0 plus 8 all over 2 will give me 4. Okay, so that's the midpoint. That is the point there, right in between those 2 points, exactly in the middle. And just one final note about slopes. So we know from everyday English, slope is a measure of how steep something is. Okay, so if your line is going like this, okay, so if it's going uphill, we expect it to have a positive answer. Okay, or a positive slope. Okay, so this line is going up. Our answer was 1/3. Okay, that's a positive number. So that's kind of an indication that we might be correct. Okay, if your line goes downhill, okay, you're expecting a negative slope. Okay, so the slope might be minus 1/3, it might be minus 3. Okay, but that's if your slope is going downwards when you're reading from left to right. Now, I mentioned at the start when we were just looking at the formulas in the formula book that there are 2 formulas for the equation of the line written down there. Okay, now, why are there 2 formulas? So first we're going to look up here. Okay, so this formula here, okay, is in your formula book. Okay, y is equal to mx plus c. Now, we should know already from what we just said about the slope that m is sometimes used instead of the word slope in maths. Okay, so the letter, if your equation looks exactly like this, okay, the number in front of the x will be your slope. So if we look down here at this example, okay, we notice that this equation here looks exactly like the formula. Okay, so straight away I can tell you that the slope of this line is 4. Okay, where did I get that? It's the number in front of the x. Okay, another piece of information I can get from it is our y-intercept. Okay, we'll be looking at this in a bit more detail in a second, but our y-intercept, okay, so if this is my x and y axis, our y-intercept is the point where a line crosses the y-axis. Okay, so this point here would be my y-intercept. Now, our y-intercept, all you do is you take the number on its own and you put a 0 in front of it. So y-intercept is the point 0, 7. Okay, now I want you to remember how to do that, because in a minute when we're drawing graphs, okay, that's important. That is one point in a line that we can find super easy. Okay, so when our equation looks exactly like y is equal to mx plus c, we can do that. Now, just one important thing. So if we have an equation 3y is equal to 4c, or 4x minus 10. Okay, now we can see that that doesn't look exactly like that. Okay, now it doesn't mean we can't use it. It just means we need to rearrange it a bit. Okay, the problem is we have a 3 stuck in front of the y, whereas the formula in your formula book doesn't have any number there. Okay, so to get rid of that 3, we need to divide everything by 3. Okay, so this is going back to algebra. If you're a little bit rusty on your algebra, okay, this might be a little bit difficult, but when you revise your algebra, manipulation of formula, and then you see this, you should be okay. So to get rid of that 3, we're going to divide everything by 3. So y is equal to 4 over 3x minus 10 over 3. Okay, now it matches up because we have our y equal to a number in front of the x plus or minus something. Okay, so here the slope m is equal to 4 over 3, and our y-intercept would be 0 minus 10 over 3. Okay, just be super careful. You can only read the information directly from that if the equation looks exactly like y is equal to some number, then your x, and then plus or minus some number. Now, a second way that sometimes the equations can be given is in this type of form. Okay, now this isn't in your formula book, okay, but this down here, 5x plus 2y plus 6, is an example of another way it can be written. Okay, there's a little trick. Okay, again, this isn't in your formula book, so you would have to learn it if you want to use it. Your slope is equal to minus a over b. Okay, what's our a? Our a is our 5 and our b is 2. So slope is equal to minus 5 all over 2. Okay, for this example. Okay, but again, that isn't in your formula book. If you want to learn it, then it's good. It's handy when your equations are written like that. Okay, it's kind of a little bit of a shortcut. If you didn't learn this, okay, you could always rearrange this line. Okay, use your algebra to rearrange it so it looks like y is equal to mx plus c. Okay, so you'd get rid of this 5 from this side, and you get rid of the 6, and then you divide them both by 2. Okay, so if you want to check that you can rearrange things, it would be a good idea to try that. Okay, but over here, this is just a little trick. It might speed things up a little bit if you are given an equation that looks like ax plus by plus c. Okay, now a very common question is find the equation of a line. Okay, now if you're asked to find the equation of the line, okay, now I've written here you must use. There is another method, but for me this way is way easier. So if you learn that when it says find the equation of the line, that is your go-to formula. Okay, it just makes your life a little easier. In my opinion, there are other ways to do it, but I prefer to do it this way. Okay, so the question then, find the equation of the line which passes through the points 4, minus 6 and 8, 8. Now, before I even start the question, the second I see find the equation of the line, okay, I pause and I'm going to draw out a little box. So first thing I'm going to do is going to write down this equation, y minus y1 is equal to m bracket x minus x1. And I'm going to write down point, and I'm going to write down slope. Okay, so every single time the question says find an equation of a line, it's going to be more important when we get to the harder examples later. Okay, anytime I see it, I write down that box. Now I'm going to fill in my information. So we know the points. We've got the points 4, minus 6, and we've got the point 8, 8. Okay, now I also need to know a slope. Okay, in this question, they don't tell me the slope. So I'm going to go away and find it. Okay, can I do that? Yes, I can. I can go to my formula book and I can find my formula for slope. Okay, so we're going to go off to the side here, write down the formula, y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. Now, I need to label my points. So I'm going to call this x1, y1, and this x2, y2. So I'm going to fill that in quickly. So it'll be 8 minus minus 6. Be very careful there. See, we're minus in the formula and we're subbing in a minus 6 over 8 minus 4. Okay. just going to pop that into my calculator quickly. So 8 minus 4. So I'm going to get out 7 over 2. Okay, you can leave it as a fraction. You can put it in a decimal form, it would be 3.5 if you wish. Okay, whichever you prefer. So the slope of our line, I can say m is equal to 7 all over 2. Okay, now if my box filled in, I can go straight to my formula. So we know our formula is y. Now, this y here and this x, they don't change. Okay, so we're going to leave those as y's and x's. So it's y minus y1. I'm going to go to my formula here. So we have minus 6 is equal to m, which just found out to be 7 over 2. Bracket x, that x won't change, minus x1, which is minus 4. Okay, now we're nearly there. So we're just going to have y minus minus 6. Two minuses together, you need to know two minuses make a positive. So it'll be y plus 6 is equal to 7 over 2x. And then I'm going to multiply 7 over 2 by 4. Okay, sorry, by minus 4. That's going to give me out minus 14. Okay, now the question might say how they want your answer arranged. Okay, so it might say in the form y is equal to mx plus c. Okay, all that means is I want this y on its own. I need to get rid of that 6. So to get rid of that positive 6, we're going to subtract 6 from both sides. So we're going to end up with y is equal to 7 over 2x minus 14 minus 6. So we'll have y is equal to 7 over 2x minus 20. Okay, and that is our answer for the equation of a line. Okay, if you had these swapped around, it wouldn't make any difference. Okay, so if you'd said that the 8 was your x1, y1, and the other one was your x2, y2, that'd be fine. Sometimes your answers might come out looking a little different, but they are exactly the same thing. Okay, so there's a lot of information there for the equation of the line. We are going to see another example now in a minute when we do a full question. Now, the next section, we're going to kind of kill two birds with the one stone here. So we're going to do two things, and using that method, we're going to be able to answer two parts of the question. So we're going to be able to graph a line, and we're also going to be able to find our x and y intercepts. Okay, so first we'll just look at an example of identifying the x and y intercepts. So your x-intercept is where it crosses the x-axis. So if I look down here, that's my x-intercept. Okay, so x-intercept for this example is 2, 0. Okay, because you go 2 along this way, but you don't go up or down any, so your y is 0. Okay, and then your y-intercept will be this point here. So my y-intercept, where it crosses the y-axis, will be 0, 4. Okay, we didn't go right or left anywhere, we just went straight up 4. So that's where the 0 comes from. Now, the next question you could be asked, you could be given the equation of the line, and you could be asked to find the x and y intercepts. Okay, we're also going to use this method if we're asked to graph a line. Okay, we'll come to that in a second. First, we'll just pretend the question says find your x and your y intercepts. Okay, now there's two ways to go about this. You can either learn off these two sentences. So to find the x-intercept, you sub in y is equal to 0. Or you can think about it logically. So the x-intercept is where it crosses the x-axis. Okay, so like here, anywhere it crosses the x-axis, y is going to be 0. Okay, and similarly for the y-intercept, you sub in x is equal to 0. Okay, so I'd recommend trying to understand this, thinking about it logically. But if you prefer learning things off, you can just learn off those two sentences. Okay, now we'll start. So we'll find the x-intercept, so we're going to sub in y is equal to 0. So we have our equation y is equal to 2x minus 3. So we have 0 is equal to 2x minus 3. Now we want to get x on its own, so this is really good revision of your algebra. So we need to get rid of that minus 3. We want x on its own. To get rid of that minus 3, we're going to add 3 to both sides. So we're going to end up with 3 is equal to 2x. Now we need to get rid of that 2 from in front of the x. So that 2 is being multiplied by the x. To get rid of it, we need to divide. So we'll end up with 3 over 2 is equal to x. So x is equal to 3 over 2, or x is equal to 1.5 if you prefer. Okay, so my x-intercept, the answer is 1.5, 0. Okay, now we'll find the same equation of the line. We're going to find the y-intercept. So we're going to sub in x is equal to 0. So we'll have y is equal to 2 by 0 minus 3. So y is equal to minus 3. So our y-intercept then is 0, comma, minus 3. Okay, so there I found my x and y-intercepts. Don't get them confused. So for x-intercept, y is 0, y-intercept, x is equal to 0. So it might be the opposite of what you might think it should be. Okay, now, pretend the next part of that question said, graph the equation. Okay, so the equation of a line, if you want to draw a line, all you need is 2 points. We found 1 point, we found 2 points. So we're going to go off and we're going to graph the line y is equal to 2x minus 3 using our x and our y-intercept. Okay, so we're going to have 0 minus 3, which is down here, and we have 1.50, which is here. Now, this is easier to do, obviously, on paper with a ruler. You connect those then with a straight line. Okay, so let's move that so it joins up. So that there is our line y is equal to 2x minus 3. Okay, so if the question had said, draw the line or graph the line, go off and find your x and y intercept, you'll be able to draw the line. If the question said find the x and y intercept, you also know how to do that. Okay, now we're going to look at one more. So 3x plus y is equal to 9. Okay, and I'm going to pretend the question says graph this line. Okay, to draw a line we need 2 points. I already know how to find 2 points. I know how to find the x-intercept. I know how to find the y-intercept. So I'm going to go away and do that. Okay, so first we're going to find x-intercept. Okay, at x-intercept we know y is equal to 0. So we'll say 3x plus 0 is equal to 9. 3x is equal to 9. Divide both sides by 3. X is equal to 3. So we have our point 3 comma 0. Okay, I'm going to plot this in a different color there. So 3 comma 0 will be there. And we'll also do our other one. So we'll also find our y-intercept. So we'll have x is equal to 0 this time. So it'll be 3 comma 0 plus y is equal to 9. So 3 by 0 is 0, so just y is equal to 9. So we have our point 0, 9. Okay, I'm also going to plot that. Now I don't have this drawn out very well, so I'm just going to continue this up here as well as I can. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then we have our point 0, comma 9, which will be up here. Okay, and again then I'm going to connect those as best I can. Obviously, if you're doing this in an exam or in class, you take out a ruler and you connect them perfectly with a ruler. Okay, so that there is our line 3x plus y is equal to 9. Okay, so on this slide, okay, in this last couple of minutes, what you've learned to do, you've learned to graph a line and you've learned to find the x and y intercepts. Okay, if you can do one, you can do the other. Okay, so it's really good, really important method here. If you're asked to graph a line, go find your x and y intercepts. If you're asked to find the x and y intercepts, you know how to do that as well. Okay, so really important slide here, so make sure you can follow these examples. Go back and listen to it again if you need to, but I would consider this a really important section of the chapter. So now we're going to go through a question that incorporates most of the things we've learned so far. So if you're feeling confident, it might be a good time now to pause the video, give the questions a go, and then check back in to correct your work. If you're still a little bit unsure, stay going with the video and we'll work through the solution. So this question starts off as expected. So we're given 2 points, 2, 2 and minus 4, 5. And we are told in part A to plot the points. Okay, so plot the point A, which is 2, 2. 2, 2 means that way and 2 up that way. The point 2, 2 is here. We're going to label that as A. And then we have the point minus 4, 5 as B. So minus 4 will be this way and then up to 5. So this will be our point minus 4, 5 right here. Okay, part A done. Nice and straightforward, like you'd expect your first parts of your questions to be. Then part B says find C, the midpoint of AB. Okay, any question like this, first thing I'm going to do, open up my formula book and I'm going to write down my formula. So my formula for midpoint is x1 plus x2 divided by 2 and y1 plus y2 divided by 2. Write down my points. My point A is 2, 2, x1, y1, and my point B is minus 4, 5, x2, y2. And I'm going to sub this into my formula. So we have x1, which is 2, plus x2, which is minus 4, all over 2. And we have B, which is we've y2, which is 5, plus y1, which is 2, all over 2. I'm going to put this into my calculator exactly the way it is there, and I'm going to get out minus 1. And I'm going to put the second part into my calculator. I'm going to get out 3.5. Easier to change to a decimal here because I'm going to plot it. So I'm going to plot my point C here, minus 1, 3.5, which will be there. Okay? I know by just looking at that looks correct. Okay? Because it's halfway between A and B. So that's my point C, the midpoint between. So part C says to verify that. Now remember from earlier that these two lines here mean the distance. So the distance AC is equal to the distance BC. Okay, really what we're going to do here, we're going to divide our question into two parts. So first we're going to find AC, and then we're going to find BC, and if we're correct, our answers will work out the same. So our formula for distance, okay, it's written as length in our formula book, length and distance are the same thing, is x2 minus x1 to be squared, y2 minus y1, all to be squared. So first we'll do A, which is 2, 2, x1, y1, and we'll do C, which is the point we just found up there, minus 1, 3.5, which will be x2, y2. So we're going to sub that in. So we'll find AC is equal to minus 1 minus 2, all to be squared, and 3.5 minus 2, all to be squared. So we'll put that into our calculator. And we get out 3 root 5 over 2. So the distance between A and C is 3 root 5 over 2. Don't be alarmed that it's not a nice number. Okay, it's still a perfectly valid answer. Now we're going to find BC. Okay, so B is the point minus 4, 5. And C is the point minus 1, 3.5. So x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay, now before I even start, I know my answer should be 3 root 5 over 2. So fingers crossed that's what we get out. So it'll be minus 1 minus minus 4. Okay, be careful there, we're double negatives. All to be squared, put that into my calculator. So I get out the same thing, so I know I'm correct. So 3 root 5 over 2. So therefore, those three dots mean therefore we can say that AC is equal to BC. We got out the same answer for both. So part D says to find the equation of AB, given your answer in the form y is equal to mx plus c. Now, we'll worry about the last bit at the end. The question says find the equation. Okay, we're finding the equation of a line. I'm going to make out my little box. So anytime it says find the equation of the line, we write down y minus y1 is equal to m bracket x minus x1. We write down point. Fill in what points we know. We know 2, 2 and minus 4, 5. Okay, we also know another point as well, but we don't need to know 3 points for this. So as long as we know 2, that's fine. And slope. Okay, now, I actually don't know the slope yet, so I need to go off and find that. Now, there's two methods I could do. I can do rise over run, or I can do the formula. Now, I actually prefer the formula, but that's just personal preference, whichever you prefer. So m is equal to y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. So m is equal to 5 minus 2 all over minus 4 minus 2. I'm going to put all that into my calculator. Okay, and I get out the slope is equal to minus a half. Okay, I'm expecting that because this line here looks something like that. It's going downhill. Okay, so we're expecting a negative slope. So m is equal to minus a half. Now I have enough information so I can just sub it into my formula. Remember, we don't change the normal x and the normal y. So it's going to be y minus 2 is equal to minus a half bracket x minus x1, which is 2. So y minus 2 is equal to a half x minus a half multiplied by minus 2 will give me plus 1. Okay, now that is my equation of the line. If I go back up to the question, it said in the form y is equal to mx plus c. So basically we want the y to be on its own. This minus 2 is our problem. To get rid of a minus 2, we need to add 2 to the other side. So it'll be y is equal to, sorry, I forgot the x there, so minus a half x, 1 plus 2 will give me 3. Okay, so that is my equation of the line in the form y is equal to mx plus. The next thing we're going to look at is the point of intersection. So the point of intersection is where two lines meet. Okay, so if this was line L and this was line M, their point of intersection is that red dot there. Okay, now there are two ways to find it. It depends on how the question is asked, what work you've already done as to how you're going to do it. So method 1, you could graph both lines and read the point from the graph. Okay, so remember to graph both lines, find the x and y intercept of them both and read it off of it. Okay, so for example, if these were two lines, you'd find the x and y intercept of the top line, the x and y intercept of the bottom line, draw your two lines and find your point in the middle. Okay, that's one way to do it. Method 2 then is algebra, and it's using your simultaneous equations. Okay, so we're going to quickly revise those. Okay, so we're going to pretend that this is the line L and this is the line M. Your question would say find the point of intersection of L and M. Okay, now for your simultaneous equations, we're going to write down our two equations. So minus x plus 6 and y is equal to x plus 2. Okay, for simultaneous equations, we need something to cancel. We can actually see here already that the x's will cancel because we have a minus x on top and a plus x on bottom. Cross those out, so you'll be left with 2y. So we'll add the y and the y here, is equal to 6 plus 2 is equal to 8. 2 multiplied by what gives me 8, so divide the 8 by 2, get y is equal to 4. Okay, that's one of my answers. Now, to get out the x, pick either the top or bottom one. I'm going to go with the bottom one. Y is equal to x plus 2. And sub in what you just found. So y is equal to 4. So 4 is equal to x plus 2. What plus 2 is equal to 4? X must equal 2. Okay? Now, if it was an algebra question, okay, if this came up in just a pure algebra, which said find or solve the simultaneous equations, that would be a fine way to write your answer. Okay? But when it comes up in coordinate geometry, the question will say find the point of intersection. So we need to put our point together, so our x always comes first. So our point of intersection will be 2, 4. Okay? So that's a good revision of simultaneous equations. If you are a bit rusty on your simultaneous equations, make sure you go back and revise them when you're doing this chapter. Okay, now the second one here is just a little bit trickier. So again, pretend the question says find the point of intersection of these two lines. Now, when we're writing these out, okay, we can immediately see that nothing is cancelling straight away. Okay, now I'm going to pick to cancel my y's just because it's a little easier here. But we need one of those to be a minus 1 y. Okay, so we're going to multiply all the bottom line by minus 1. Okay, top line we'll leave alone. Y is equal to 2x plus 3. Probably the biggest mistake people make here is they forget to multiply something in the line by the minus 1 or the minus 2 or whatever it is. Okay, so here we need to multiply all the bottom line by minus 1. So I'll change to minus y is equal to minus 5x multiplied by minus 1 will be a positive 5x. And 10 multiplied by minus 1 will give me minus 10. Okay, now these will cancel. So we'll be left with 0 is equal to 7x minus 7. Now, we want x on its own. We need to get rid of that minus 7. To get rid of that minus 7, we'll do the inverse operation. So we'll do the opposite. So we'll add 7. So this will be 7. So 0 plus 7 will give me 7 is equal to 7x. And now we'll divide both sides by 7. So x is equal to 1. Okay, that's half of my answer. Now we'll sub that answer into one of our original equations. We'll go into the top one. So y is equal to 2x plus 3. Y is equal to 2 by 1 plus 3 because we just found out that x is equal to 1. So y is equal to 5. Okay, so then again, if that was algebra, that'd be your answer done. But when it's simultaneous equations, you'll be looking for your point of intersection. So your answer will be 1, 5. Remember, your x always comes first. Okay, so what I'd say about this, now I went through the simultaneous equations there quite quickly. If you're unsure about those, make sure you go back and revise them from algebra. Okay, so you need to be clever about how you revise. When you're revising simultaneous equations, look at it from coordinate geometry point of view as well. When you're revising coordinate geometry, make sure you go back to your simultaneous equations from algebra. Okay, so that's for your point of intersection. Basically what you need to learn is point of intersection, go straight to simultaneous equations, okay? Unless you already have your graph drawn, or it says from your graph find the point of intersection. If it mentions anything about algebra, you need to do your simultaneous equations using the algebra method, like these two examples. Knowing what parallel and perpendicular lines mean is really important for coordinate geometry, okay? So we're going to be looking at these in terms of slope. So first, for parallel lines, okay? So the easiest way to think about these is train tracks, okay? So train tracks always run parallel, okay? They'll never meet. And what parallel lines mean in coordinate geometry is they have the same slope, okay? So we can see here, if the slope of line 1 here is a half, the slope of this line is a half, so they're parallel, okay? If the slope of this one here is 2, they're parallel, so the slope of that one must be 2. Okay, I'm going to call this line L and I'm going to call this line K. You might see this symbol L parallel to K. So those two lines that kind of look like train tracks, that's the symbol for parallel. Okay, so if they're parallel, they have the same slope. We're going to be seeing questions in a second where you need to use that knowledge and apply it to the question. But for now, just know that parallel lines have the same slope. Okay, so you need to learn that off. Then the next one is perpendicular lines. Okay, so perpendicular lines, they meet at a right angle. Okay, so if we draw a line here, we'll call that line L. And we're going to call this line K. If they're perpendicular, all these angles in here are right angles, so they're 90 degrees. Okay, now it says here perpendicular lines, the slope of one is the reciprocal of the other. Okay, so if the slope of line L is 3, let's say minus 3 over 4. Okay, so the slope of L minus 3 all over 4. And the question says find the slope of K. The slope of K, so what you do is you flip it upside down. So instead of writing 3 over 4, we're going to write 4 over 3. And we're going to change the sign. So it was a negative, it's now a positive. Okay? If one line had the slope of 3, okay, the perpendicular slope would be minus 1 all over 3. Okay, if something had the slope of minus 1 over 5, the perpendicular slope, flip it upside down, so it just become 5, and change the sign, it'll become positive. Okay, so flip it upside down and changed the sign. Okay, what's really important as well, just the symbol. So if L is perpendicular to K, you write that as L, and kind of like an upside down capital T. So that symbol there means perpendicular. Okay, so you need to know perpendicular lines. To get the perpendicular slope, flip it upside down and change the sign. Parallel lines, they have the same slope. You don't need to do anything. Okay, now they come up in slightly trickier questions that we're going to move on to now. Okay, so we need to know this knowledge. You can learn that off by heart. Okay, so you do need to learn certain parts of this chapter. There aren't formulas for everything. This is one of those parts that you need to learn off. Okay. Now, the slightly harder questions for finding the equation of a line. Okay, now just because these are harder, we're going to apply the exact same things that we did with the more basic questions, and then we won't hit a problem. So, P is the line, y is equal to x plus 4. The line Q contains the point 5, 6 and is parallel to P. Find the equation of Q. Okay, now, what we're going to do is we're going to write down our box. Why are we going to write down our box for finding the equation of a line? Because all we're really asked is to find the equation of Q. Anytime we're asked to find the equation of a line, we write down our formula. And we write down point. And we write down slope. Now, we're looking for the equation of Q. Do we know a point on Q? We do. It's 5, 6. And do we know the slope? No, we don't know the slope. Okay, now I think, what methods do I know to find the slope? So I know my formula, m is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. For that, we need to know 2 points. We only know 1 point, so that's not going to work. Can also find the slope using rise over run. We don't have a graph drawn, that's not going to work. So now I need to go back to the question. Okay, we're told in the question that P is the line y is equal to x plus 4, and this is parallel to Q. So P and Q are parallel. What does that tell us? They have the same slope. So what do we know about P? We know that P is the line y is equal to x plus 4. Okay, what does that tell us? I can find my slope from that. So it really looks like y is equal to mx plus c. The only difference is there's no number in front of the x. When there's no number in front of the x, there's really a 1 there, okay? Really, people, like mathematicians, were just too lazy to write that one, but there's nothing wrong with writing it, and for this question it makes it a little easier. So m is our slope, the number in front of the x, which is 1. Okay, P and Q are parallel, so this is our slope of P, and it's also our slope of Q because they're parallel. So we can write up here m is equal to 1. Okay, now I have all my box filled in, so I can just go ahead and fill in the equation. So this will be my x1 and my y1. So y minus 6 is equal to 1 bracket x minus 5. I'm just going to multiply that out and tidy it up a little bit. So y minus 6 is equal to x minus 5. Okay, now we need to get rid of this minus 6 from this side. To get rid of the minus 6, we'll add 6 to both sides. So y is equal to x plus 1 minus 5 plus 6 will give me plus 1. So that is our equation of Q. Okay, so again, anytime it says find the equation of the line, this box is your savior. Okay, you really can't go wrong if you use that box. Okay, so anytime it says find the equation of a line, do that box, fill out what information you can, and then you may have to find the slope using a method like that. So, okay, so just one more similar question. So here, m is the line 3x minus 6y plus 11 is equal to 0. The line n contains the point minus 4, 2, and is perpendicular to m. Find the equation of n. Now, I've read the question. This is my kind of key bit. Find the equation of n, so I'm going to write out my box. Okay, point and slope. Okay, do I know a point on n? I do. It's minus 4, 2. Okay, I'll label that as my x1, y1. Do I know the slope? No. Okay, so again, I know 1 point. Can't use the formula because I need 2 points for that. Can't do rise over run because I need to have a graph drawn. So I look at what other information. We're given the equation of the line m, which is 3x minus 6y plus 11 is equal to 0. Okay, and this is perpendicular to n. So if I can find the slope of m, I'll be able to flip it upside down and change the sign, and that'll give me the slope of n. Now, to find the slope of m, okay, I'm going to do it both ways. Okay, so I'm going to do method 1. Okay, so you have 3x minus 6y plus 11 is equal to 0. Okay, that's in the form ax plus by plus c is equal to 0. Okay, so for this method, when it's laid out like this, okay, slope is equal to minus a all over b. Here a is the number in front of x, so a is equal to 3. B is the number in front of y, so b is equal to minus 6. Okay, so when I fill that in, slope is equal to minus 3 all over minus 6, which is equal to a half. Okay, that's method 1. Now, if you don't like that method, you can do method 2, which is use a little bit more algebra. Okay, we should get out the same answer. So we have our equation 3x minus 6y plus 11 is equal to 0. And we're going to change it into the form y is equal to mx plus c. Now, it's going to be a little bit of rearranging involved here. So what I need to do is I need to get this 6y on its own. Okay, so my problems are the 3x and the 11. Okay, so I'm going to let minus 6y is equal to, now, I need to get rid of this minus 3x. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract minus 3x from both sides. So I'm going to end up with minus 3x here, and I need to get rid of this 11. We're going to subtract 11 from that side as well. Okay, so now we're close. Our only problem now is this minus 6 in front of the y. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide everything on the other side by minus 6. So it'll be minus 3 over minus 6x minus 11 over minus 6. Okay, so now we're left with y is equal to minus 3 over minus 6. It's going to give me a half x. And then that will be plus 11 over 6 because the minuses will cancel out. That is actually quite irrelevant because all we want is y is equal to mx plus c. Okay, we can see that our m is the number in front of the x. M is equal to a half. Okay, so we got out the same answer using both methods. Okay, obviously this is a lot shorter, but you do need to learn off that the slope is minus a over b. Okay, here you need your algebra to be quite strong because you're doing a lot of rearranging. Okay, but all I wanted to show there was you get the same answer both ways. So anyway, our slope of m is equal to a half. Now, you need to be careful. The temptation would be just to fill in up there, m is equal to a half. Okay, but we're looking for the slope of n, and n is perpendicular to m. So slope of m, or slope of n even. So what we're going to do to find the perpendicular slope, we're going to flip it upside down. So we'll end up with 2 over 1. And we're going to change the sign, we're going to put a minus sign in front of it. Okay, so really what that is just minus 2. If you put this into your calculator, it'll just tell you that it's minus 2. You can ignore that 1 underneath. Okay, so our slope is minus 2. So now we have our box filled in, we can go straight and fill in our formula. So it'll be y minus 2 is equal to m, which is minus 2, x minus x1, which is minus 4. So y minus 2 is equal to, we'll do what's inside in the bracket first, so we'll get rid of these two minuses. That'll be x plus 4. So y minus 2 is equal to minus 2x minus 8, and now we'll just get rid of this minus 2. So we'll add 2 to the other side. Minus 2x minus 8 plus 2 will give me minus 6. So this here is my equation of n. Okay, so a little bit more work involved here. Obviously, you don't have to do the two methods to find the slope. All I did there, method 1 and method 2. I just want to show that you get out the same answer both ways. Okay, so the key to both of those last two questions, do out your box, write down what information. Okay, always write down as well what you actually found. So in this first step, I found the slope of m. Go back up and read your question. You don't want to find the equation of m. We already know that. We want to find the equation of n. So you need to flip it upside down and change the sign because they're perpendicular. So slightly harder questions, but I think very doable when you have it laid out correctly and keep your work nice and organised. So just to finish up, we're going to take a look at two exam questions. They're actually both from last year's Junior Cert, so 2022. So we're just going to see how coordinate geometry was asked, okay? The questions cover nearly everything that we've done so far, okay? So they were really good questions, and if you can do these questions, I would say that you're fairly confident in this topic, okay? So again, if you're feeling confident about this, it'd be a good idea to pause this video. You can see at the top of the question here, it says suggested time 5 minutes, okay? So take your 5 minutes, make sure you don't go over it. See how much of it you could get done, and then we will come and correct it, okay? So we'll read the question first. The line H has a slope of 4 and passes through the point 2012. Find the coordinates of any other point on the line H other than the point 2012. Show you're working out. Okay, now here what we notice, okay, they don't have like 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? So we can't just read a point directly from the graph, okay? Now, I'm going to look at the information that I'm given. I'm given a point and I'm given a slope. What might be useful if I could find the equation of the line. Okay, so can I find the equation of the line H? Okay, I have a point, I have a slope. That's exactly the information I need to find the equation of a line. So maybe that might help me. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to find the equation of the line. Okay, so I have my formula. Okay, and you should know the drill at this stage. First thing we're going to write down is our point, which we know is 2012, x1, y1, and we also know our slope, which is m is equal to 4. I know all my information, so I'm just going to go ahead and fill it into my formula. So y minus 12 is equal to m, which is 4 bracket x minus 20. So y minus 12 is equal to 4x minus 80. Need to get rid of this 12 from this side, so to get rid of a minus 12, we'll add 12 to both sides. So it'll be y is equal to 4x. Now minus 80 plus 12 is minus 68. Okay, now I would always check, I know that's a fairly straightforward calculation, but if you're anyway unsure with your minus signs, always double check that in your calculator, because you don't want to be missing marks like that on things you could have done in your calculator. Now, that is not my question. Okay, it's probably a lot of my attempt marks, but it does not answer the question. So, we want to find the coordinates of another point. Now, technically, there's so many answers to this. Okay, there's one obvious point kind of jumping out at me here, and it's that point. Okay, another word for that point is my x-intercept. Okay, at my x-intercept, we're going to find that. Okay, at my x-intercept, y is equal to 0. So I have my equation, y is equal to 4x minus 68. So we're going to sub in y for 0. So 0 is equal to 4x minus 68. We want x on its own, you need to get rid of this minus 68. So you'll add 68 to both sides. So it'll be 68 is equal to 4x. You need to get rid of that 4. So we're going to divide both sides by 4. 68 divided by 4 is 17. So my x-intercept is the point 17, 0. Okay, so that point there should be 17, 0. So that's my answer. Okay, now that's just one possible answer. Okay, you didn't have to find the x-intercept. The only reason I chose that is we've been doing a lot of work on that in this session. Okay, other options. Now, I'm not going to do these out, but these are other things you could have done. So instead of finding the x-intercept, you could have found the y-intercept. Okay, so you would have subbed in x is equal to 0 and found your y. Okay, you would have actually gotten, we'll just do this quickly. So y is equal to 4 by 0 minus 68. So y is equal to minus 68. So your y-intercept would have been 0 minus 68. That would have been another answer. Okay, now what you could also done, you could have put in x is equal to 1 and solved for y. So you could have said that y is equal to 4 by 1 minus 68. So y is equal to 4 minus 68, that'll give me minus 64. So that point 1 minus 64 would be another possible answer. Okay, or ... You could have found x is equal to 2, sub that in and found the y. Okay, so you actually could have done an infinite amount of things there and gotten the right answer. Okay, the key thing is that you found the equation of the line. Once you found the equation of the line, you should be flying with that question. Okay, x-intercept there was kind of the obvious one to me, but again, you could have found x equal to 1, solve for y, x equal to 2, solve for y. You could have left y is equal to 10 and solved for x. Okay, so you really could have done anything, but I think there the x-intercept is the most obvious choice. Okay, so just be aware, if you didn't get my answer there, your answer may still be correct. So now we're moving on to a slightly longer question. Okay, so here's part A, B, C and D of this question. So we'll read the question first just to figure out what we're being asked. So the coordinate diagram below shows part of the N22 road in County Cork. Okay, not very relevant to the question. 2 points on the road P and Q are marked in the diagram. Okay, so now we know we have 2 points on the diagram. We know it's a coordinate geometry question. Now, part A says the point Q has coordinates 6, 2. Write down the coordinates of the point P. So we're looking for the coordinates here. So the coordinates are minus 1, 3. Okay, now, some of you might be thinking, why did they bother with this line? Okay, say for example, you drew a complete blank in the exam. Okay, and you couldn't remember which number comes first. If this is 6, 2, okay, how did they get the 6? They used this number first and then this number. You could apply that knowledge then to figure out which number comes first for P. Okay, just in case you drew a complete blank. Now, part B then. The equation of the line PQ is x plus 7y is equal to 20. Using this or otherwise, find the coordinates of the point where PQ crosses the y-axis. Okay, now, usually when it says using this or otherwise, the otherwise method isn't usually as straightforward. Okay, so we'll just go with what they said. We'll use the equation. So we have x plus 7y is equal to 20. We're looking for where it crosses the y-axis, so the y-intercept. Okay, at the y-intercept, we know x is equal to 0. So I'm just going to sub that in. So it's going to be 0 plus 7y is equal to 20. 7y is equal to 20. How will I get rid of that 7 from in front of the y? We're going to divide the 20 by 7. So y is equal to 20 over 7, or y is equal to, okay, now that doesn't change to too nice a decimal, okay, so we'll actually just leave it as the fraction. So y is equal to, our y-intercept will be 0, 20 over 7, okay? If we want to kind of approximate it, it's actually 2.85, okay? Now, does that look about right? So if I was to draw a line connecting P and Q, okay, so it does cross the x-axis or the y-axis there around 2 point something. So my answer does make sense. Okay, it didn't say to decimal points or anything, so we can just leave it in fraction form because it's easier. But if it did, you'd have to know your rules of rounding. So that's part A and B done. Now we'll flick forward to part C. A new road is being built through Q, which is a point 62, on the coordinate diagram. It will be a straight line segment which is perpendicular to PQ. Okay, now I'm going to go back to my diagram here. Perpendicular to PQ. Okay, what does that mean? It's going to meet at a right angle. So it will be something like this roughly. Okay, now that's a very rough line, but that would be roughly what it looks like, that red line there. Okay, I might just change the colour of that so it looks different to the original line. So that green line there is what we're looking for. Okay, work out the equation of this new road. Okay, now equation of the new road, we're looking for the equation of a line. First thing I'm going to write down, y minus y1 m bracket x minus x1. Okay, next thing, point. Do we know a point on this? We do. The point is 6,2. Do we know the slope? We don't. Okay, we don't know the slope, but we know how to find it. What does it tell us? It tells us that it's perpendicular to PQ. Okay, now the line PQ has equation x plus 7y is equal to 20. Okay, now, can I find the slope of this? Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to rearrange it to be in the form y is equal to mx plus c. Okay, so I'm going to get y on its own, so it'll be 7y is equal to 20 minus x. Okay, now I'm going to rearrange that because we always have our x first, so 7y is equal to minus x plus 20. Now, we need to get rid of that 7, so y is equal to minus 1 over 7x plus 20. So our slope, m, is equal to minus 1 over 7. Okay. You could have also rearranged it to be in the form ax, we'll do that quickly here, ax plus by plus c is equal to 0. So that would give us x plus 7y minus 20 is equal to 0. Slope is equal to minus a over b. So there's a 1 in front there, so slope is equal to minus 1 over 7. You get out the same answer. Okay, either way, whichever one you prefer. Now, that's the slope of our original road. So that's the slope of this road here. Okay, but the road we're trying to find the equation of, the green one there, okay, that's perpendicular. So what we need to do is we need to flip our slope upside down and we need to change the sign. Okay, so if we flip this upside down, we're going to get 7 over 1 and we need to change the sign so it's going to become positive. So slope really here is 7. Okay, so this is really, really similar. Well, it's actually the exact same question as the second trickier one we did. Sorry, this one here. Okay, so it's essentially the exact same question. Okay, now we're just going to fill it in. So we'll have y, this is my x1, y1. So it'll be y minus 2 is equal to 7 bracket x minus 6. Y minus 2 is equal to 7x minus 42. Now, this is where we're going to read our question. Now, we haven't seen this before. This is a slight extension onto what we've done. We want our answer in the form ax plus by plus c is equal to 0. Okay, Basically, we want our x's, y's, and our numbers all at the same side. Okay, so we're going to put a 0. Well, we'll bring everything to, let's say we'll bring everything over to that side, over to the left-hand side. So we'll have minus 7x, okay, because we need to get rid of the 7x from this side. To get rid of that, we'll subtract it from the other side. Plus y minus 2. To get rid of this 42 from this side, we're going to add 42 is equal to 0. So we'll be left with minus 7x plus y plus 40 is equal to 0. Okay, so that now is in the form something x plus something y plus something is equal to 0. Okay, so they can either ask it like that. So they can either ask it in the form y is equal to mx plus c, or to be in the form ax plus by plus c is equal to 0. Okay, just make sure when you find the equation of your line, you go back up and read the question. Did it give you any criteria? Okay, because you'd be losing the last couple of marks after all. Now, part D actually has nothing to do with coordinate geometry. We're not going to do it in this video just because we haven't done any preparation for it. But if you have ratios done already in class, it would be great to attempt this question as part of revision. Okay. My top tip here would be just watch your units. So there's centimeters, millimeters, and meters. Okay. And then they want their answer in kilometers. So just make sure you're converting between them correctly, and also make sure that your answer makes sense. So if you look at the map, okay, it's a map of a road in County Cork. So those 2 points, okay, if you look at the river, like those 2 points aren't super close. So those 2 points aren't only a couple of 100 meters apart, but they're also not thousands of kilometers away from each other. Okay, so just make sure your answer at the end there makes sense. Okay, but you should be fairly prepared now that when you get a question on your Junior Cert Maths, it's not just going to be one topic. You might have to pull your knowledge from a couple of different topics into the same question. Okay, this is a good example of it here. It was all coordinate geometry and then suddenly ratios. Okay, so just to end, just some tips for how I would approach this topic when you're revising. So first thing, always write out the formula and label your points. So by label your points, I mean your x1, y1, your x2, y2. And when you're writing out the formula, okay, some people think, okay, I've done loads of these questions, I know the formula. Make sure you still look at the formula book, okay, because you could make a small mistake with a minus sign or a plus sign or something, okay? So always write out the formula from the formula book. When you're studying as well, make sure you get familiar with using your formula book, just because the formulas might look slightly differently in your textbook. Then be careful of the double minus signs. What I mean by that is in some formulas there's a minus sign in it, and if you're subbing in a negative number, the 2 negatives will make a positive. We saw some examples of that, so just be careful when that happens. The question says find the equation of the line, draw out the box. So your formula, y minus y1 is equal to m bracket x minus x1, and your point and your slope, fill it in, and then you really can't go wrong with that question. If you're drawing a graph, make sure to make them neat and use a ruler. If you are asked to draw a line between A and B and you don't use a ruler, okay, you will definitely lose marks. Okay, so make sure you use a ruler and make it nice and neat. And then finally, practice exam style questions. So that's the only way you get used to the phrasing of the questions, and also get prepared for questions that will link into other topics. So for example, with the simultaneous equations, when I'm studying for this, I'd learn my simultaneous equations, but I'd also go into my algebra chapter and just revise it from an algebra point of view as well. Okay, so I hope you found this video useful, and best of luck with your study.